everyone, and welcome to the Explore More session for the NES Elementary Subtest 2, which is mostly on mathematics and science. There is a little bit of the arts involved as well. I am Professor Katie Long from the College of Education. I teach mostly the methods for teaching elementary math and science courses, as well as some ESL courses and student teaching courses. So if I haven't had you yet, I'm hoping to have you soon. Our agenda today will be just to give you some general information about the NES Subtest 2, some tips for success, and then we'll look at some practice problems. So this test is computer-based. It is 75 multiple choice questions. So there are 50% of those questions will be math, 38% will be science, and 12% will be the arts, health, and fitness. You do have 1 hour and 45 minutes to take the exam. A passing score is 220. It does cost to take the exam. I'm not sure if the fees have changed, but the last I knew that was $50 for this subtest, or if you take subtest 1 and 2 together, it could be $95, a little $5 discount. A scaled score is provided to you immediately after testing. So you know a passing score is 220. You will get a score like that before leaving taking the exam, so you'll know whether you passed or not. I want you to think of the test in this way. If we're really breaking down the mathematics here, so since math is 50% of the questions, that means you're going to have about 37 to 38 questions that are, related to math standards. That means for science, 38%. That means you'll have 28 to 29 questions that are science related, and then the arts, health, and fitness, there will be about 9 questions that are related there. Just a different way to take a look at it and think about it. So your scale score of 220 being a passing score, it is out of 300 points, which is a 73%. So you must get, if we convert that again to the number of questions, you have to answer at least 55 questions right out of 75. So the reason that I share this with you is because I know some of us can get some, kind of testing anxiety or get really nervous about our test. But what I want you to know is you do not have to get a perfect score on this in order to pass. You have, if you look at 55 out of 75, you have 20 questions that you can get wrong and still pass the test. Now, I wouldn't bank on that. Obviously, you want to try to get as many right as you can. However, what I would do is give yourself a little leeway, because sometimes we get questions wrong we think we knew. So I would say, you know yourself better than I do, but depending, I would say, give yourself 15 questions that you can get wrong, and you're going to be okay with it. Maybe it's 10, maybe just to be safe. But you're going to be okay with it. You're not going to, sulk over not knowing this question and spend too much time on it, since it is a time test, that you're just going to mark it, maybe keep your own tally marks, like, okay, number 5 is one that I just know I'm not going to get correct, and I'm not going to let it stress me out. So that's the purpose of me telling you that you need 55 out of 75 questions correct. You don't have to be perfect on this test or with anything in life. You just need to do your best. So I want you to kind of help you mentally think about it that way. So if we look at the competencies or kind of standards that this exam is aligned to, you can see in math, there are 4. So we're talking about numeration, just basic number sense, operations, reasoning, problem solving, communication and representation, data analysis, understanding patterns, algebra and functions, and then of course geometry and measurement. In elementary science competencies, you're going to see life science, physical, earth and space, and then scientific inquiry. So all of the test questions are written to be aligned to these competencies. And we'll dig a bit deeper into these competencies here when we get to our practice problems. So some tips for studying success. Dory from Finding Nemo has some tips for us. So my first tip is to utilize the Academic Center for Excellence, or ACE centers. There are multiple of them on campus. I think there is one dedicated to College of Education, but I know it can change. But if you just go into any one of them, they can give you the right information. And they are specifically tutoring and helping students for the NES test. So that would be my first stop. If you're wanting, some outside help or tutoring with the test, definitely utilize our resources in the ACE Center. Also, pay close attention, like I mentioned about these math and science competencies. Pay close attention to those and their objectives that are underneath each competency. And then you want to do some practice problems or questions that are aligned to those. There are so many websites out there that are, for elementary students, that are practicing math. Go to those websites, play those fun games and do those different activities. Just the more practice you get, the better. They always say, one of my favorite sayings is that the best way to know or understand math is to do math. You just have to practice. You just have to get in there and practice. I would say when you go to some of those websites or when you're studying, focus mostly on the competencies that are taught in grades 4 through 6. So if you're looking at the Common Core standards, or for science, the next generation science standards, look at the competencies that are kind of 4 through 6, because that's mostly what you will see on this test. Make sure that you're not just doing math in terms of numbers, but make sure you are practicing some of the different strategies using diagrams or number lines. There are so many strategies out there that you could encounter on this exam that you have to analyze and actually think critically about. You need to know how to interpret math problems and set them up, not just how to do the math itself. So make sure you kind of are well versed with all of that. Also, like I mentioned, there are some websites, there are video tutorials. If you haven't heard of Khan Academy, that's a really great one to just practice some specific math problems. And then they also have the tutorial videos there for you that can help kind of take you through it. So another one is Engage New York. Like I mentioned, there's online games. Arizona Department of Education typically does have some practice tests for AZ merit. So go to a 4th grade or 5th grade or 6th grade one or all of them and take those practice tests to just see where you're at. There is, of course, online NES test prep materials. You can see the websites listed there. There's some books. There are some things that cost money and some that don't. I would definitely say utilize all of the free resources you have, such as these Explore Mores, the ACE centers on campus, and the websites. But if you feel you need more, absolutely check some of those out as well. So here's some tips for success on the day of the test. Try to eat a healthy meal prior to taking the test. Nothing that's going to upset your stomach and, so your stomach's churning while you're in there trying to take the test. It can help to do some type of exercise, even if it's just a walk, some stretching, just to increase blood flow to your brain to make you the best prepared you can be to take the test. I know it's easier said than done, but try to relax as much as possible and stay positive. Practice using positive affirmations such as, I'm ready for this test. I have studied and I'm going to do well on this test. Repeat some of these things to yourself rather than some of the negative things that can kind of creep in for all of us sometimes. Make sure you follow the directions carefully on the test. There is a computer-based testing tutorial, so if you need to know how to use, like if you'll have access to a calculator or different things like that, it'll tell you, the tutorial will show you how to do that. This is a really big tip I give. Write down all of your math work. So even if you think you know it and you can solve it in your head, write it down. Don't take too much time, but write it down, do all of your work, because you don't want to miss questions that you think you know. That is the worst, because you're rushing, you're going too fast, or you get excited because you're like, I know this. You don't want to miss those questions. So just make sure you're thorough with your work. Pace yourself. Read everything carefully. There's going to be quite a bit of reading. So, even math word problems, there's reading. In science, there will be a lot of reading and charts and things like that you're analyzing. So use those reading strategies and just read really carefully. And then, of course, you have to evaluate your options to determine the best answer. There will be only one answer for every question. And then just check and review your work. You will be able to skip questions and go back to them. So again, try not, spend a good amount of time, but try not to let too much time passed by, because you do need to pace yourself and you will be able to go back. All right, so now to the practice problems or questions when we get to science. So once the problem or question is displayed here, I will read it out loud to you. And then what I suggest to you is pause the video and just have some scratch paper out and try to work the problem or question out yourself. And if you're studying with someone else, maybe have a little discussion about their ideas and your ideas and see if you can come to a consensus on the answer. And then once you think you have that consensus or you think you have the answer, go ahead and play the video to see what the correct answer is and the subsequent explanation about that answer. So our first problems are going to be aligned to this first competency that you see up top with number sense. These are the objectives that are aligned to this competency. So this is everything that it involves. So you can see it involves properties of numbers, number systems, place value, rounding, comparing and ordering numbers. I won't read all of this to you, but I'll just kind of skip through it. Prime and composite numbers, divisibility rules, rational numbers, fractions, decimals, probability, mental math. So this is everything that's involved with competency 1. So we are going to do maybe a couple of practice problems that is aligned to this competency. Also in the folder where this video will be located, you will find some other, a packet that goes along with this and some other practice problems that you can try as well. So here's number 1. Nutritional label on a food product states that one serving contains 300 calories. If 8% of the calories come from protein and protein contains 4 calories per gram, how many grams of protein are in one serving of the food product? So your 4 options are 24 grams, 96 grams, 6 grams, 32 grams. Okay, so pause the video and do some work. All right, so the correct answer is 6 grams. So let's take a look at the reasoning for this. This question requires you to examine and solve problems involving integers and percent, of course. We see that percent in the word problem. So since 8% of the calories in one serving of the food product come from protein, and there are 300 calories in one serving, you have to multiply 300 times that 8%. And we know to multiply by a percent, we must convert it to a decimal, which is 8 hundredths, so 0.08. So then you get 24 calories come from protein. So now there's another step to the problem, right? Since protein contains 4 calories per gram, like it tells us in the word problem, you have to divide 24 calories by 4 calories per gram to get that 6 grams of protein in one serving of the food product. So notice there's multiple steps to this problem, right? There are multiple things you have to know how to do, like converting a percent to a decimal, multiplying, dividing. So that's how we get to that answer. So in the study materials that will be posted with this video, if you missed this or you just want to study or practice some more problems related to this question, you will find that in chapter 1 of the study materials. Here's another question aligned to the same competencies. A student has a bag containing 96 hard candies and wants to give an equal number of them to each of 6 friends. Which of the following mathematical operations would be most useful for the student to use when determining how many candies each friend should receive? Pause the video. All right, and the correct answer is division. So this one actually didn't involve any computation, right? You had to be able to read and understand what the question was asking and know how to set problems up, right? So again, this would be aligned to chapter 1. Okay, moving on to competency number 2. This one's all about problem solving, communication, and data analysis. So it's things like mathematical reasoning and proofs, various strategies and procedures that could be used in problem solving situations, language and symbols, quantitative relationships, diagrams, models, charts, manipulative, statistical measures, displaying data in different formats. That's what's all aligned to this competency. So here's our first practice problem. In a school, 74 students are in the chorus or the band or both. Of the 74 students, 39 are in the chorus, 47 are in the band, and 12 are in both the chorus and the band. Which of the following Venn diagrams represents this situation? Okay, so since the Venn diagrams were so large, I wasn't able to fit them all on the same screen. So I want you to draw a Venn diagram. So the first thing you have to know here is what a Venn diagram is, which has nothing to do with math or science typically, right? But you do have to know that. So draw your Venn diagram, pause the video, and see if you can put the numbers in the correct places in the Venn diagram. All right, so you should have come up with a Venn diagram that looks like this. So for chorus, there should be 27, band 35, and then together, students who are in both, there were 12. So this requires you to apply the knowledge of diagrams used to represent real-world situations. So you can see here that the overlapping area of the two circles is where the students were in both chorus and band. And so you have to do the subtraction of 39 minus 12, which is 27, to get your chorus students, and then do the subtraction of 47 minus 12, which is 35, to get the number of students who were in band. So all of this type of information is in chapter 2 of the study materials that you will be able to access in this folder. Moving on to the next competency. This one is all about patterns, algebra, and functions. You can see things like patterns and numbers, shapes and data, expressions and equations, inequalities, patterns that model real-world situations, making predictions, properties of functions, and algebraic concepts. So here's a problem aligned to this competency. You can see the numbers above: 0, 1, 5, 14, 30, 55. And the question is, which of the following numbers would appear next in the patterned sequence above? Is it 91, 81, 121, or 64? So go ahead and pause the video and see if you can work this one out. And the correct answer is 91. So this question requires us to recognize patterns in numbers, of course. In the pattern given, the differences between the numbers in the pattern are 1. So between 0 and 1, the difference is 1. Between 1 and 5, the difference is 4, and so forth. And it goes all the way up to 25. So when you look at those differences at those numbers there, 1, 4, 9, 16, and 25, which are the differences between the given numbers, those are squares. Those are the squares of the first 5 integers. So to determine the next term, the square of 6 or 36 must be added to 55 in order to get 91. So lots of steps involved in this one. You know, patterns can be fairly easy when we first start learning them, but this is obviously a little bit more, you know, upper elementary, possibly middle school, because remember, this exam covers K-8 standards. So anyway, 91 is the correct answer, and this is in chapter 3. Moving on to competency number 4. This one's all about geometry and measurement. So it includes things like properties of lines, angles, 2- and 3-dimensional shapes, symmetry, congruence, and similarity. Also problems involving perimeter, area, volume, transformations, measurement, scale, and coordinate systems. Again, we've got geometry with real-world problems, measurement units, tools, measurement techniques, and metric and customary systems. So here's a practice problem. So you can see the diagram above at the top there. So in the diagram above, lines L and M are parallel and are intersected by line N. If the measure of angle A is known, which of the following expressions represents the measure of angle B? So you have to decide, is it 90 degrees minus angle A, 360 degrees minus angle A, 120 degrees minus angle A, or 180 degrees minus angle A. So obviously you are trying to figure out here, when put together, angle A and angle B would equal how many degrees? So go ahead and pause the video to see if you can figure out the answer. And the correct answer is 180 degrees minus A, because we know the measurement of a straight line, if we were to continue the measurement to this straight line here, is 180 degrees. We all know that the measurement of an entire circle is 360, right? So half of that is 180. So if we do 180 minus this measurement of angle A, it would give us the angle B measurement, which would be the same if we drew the line up here. So all of this information can be found in chapter 4. And so I do see down here some more vocabulary, because we've got parallel, intersected, and the measure of the angle. So it does say, since the corresponding angle is the supplement angle, so that's an important word that I didn't use initially, of angle A, angle B is also the supplement of angle A. So again, all of this in chapter 4. All right, moving on to science. So first up for science, it's life science. So everything about characteristics and life processes of plants, animals, other living organisms, the ways in which organisms are ordered and classified and how they change over time, life cycles and reproductive patterns of organisms, heredity and transmission of traits, interactions between organisms and their environment. So our first practice question here is, the waxy layer covering the exoskeleton of an insect is an adaptation that primarily aids in which of the following functions? Avoiding detection by predators, minimizing water loss, blocking ultraviolet radiation, absorbing oxygen. So when it comes to science, sometimes, maybe a lot of the time, you won't remember learning about this, right? You didn't learn about this very specific piece of information about a waxy layer of an insect. That's okay. What you're going to do a lot with the science questions is you're going to use your context clues quite a bit, you know, within the questions and then also within the answers. You're going to just kind of use your best judgment, you know, what you already know about insects or about waxy layers, what something waxy might do, and what's involved with that. So you're going to use all of that information to try to come up with the best possible answer. Hopefully you can eliminate a couple, but come up with the best possible answer. So go ahead and pause the video to take a minute to think, reread, and think about what the answer might be. And the correct answer is minimizing water loss. So this question requires us to apply knowledge of the characteristics of living organisms. In terrestrial insects, the waxy layer of the exoskeleton acts as a waterproof barrier that keeps water in and prevents insects from becoming dehydrated. So when I think of waxy layer, just initially, I think of, you know, how water kind of does like repel off of it. And so I could have used that as some background knowledge to help me understand, you know, and this is the only thing that has water with it. So that could have been my best educated guess as well. All of this information is in chapter 5 of the study materials that you will be provided. Okay, so moving on to the next competency, which is all about physical, earth, and space sciences. You can see here properties of matter, physical chemical changes, simple machines and tools, light, sound, electricity, magnetism, energy, solar system, sun and moon, structure, composition, structure, landforms and processes in the Earth's geologic system and how it interacts with other Earth systems. More about Earth's systems, the atmospheric systems, weather, climate, renewable, non-renewable resources. So that's all included in this competency. Here is a practice question. Which of the following shows the relative positions of the sun, earth, and moon during a solar eclipse? So again, take what you know, use your context clues. What do you know about the sun, earth, and moon? What do you know, about their positions, and what do you know about what a solar eclipse is? Pause the video, study the pictures, and come up with your best answer. The correct answer is the one you see circled there. So this question requires us to recognize the effects of the relative positions of the sun, earth, and moon. So a solar eclipse can only occur when the moon moves directly between the sun and earth, casting its shadow over part of earth, right? So you'd need to know that solar refers to sun, right? As opposed to a lunar eclipse, which would refer to the moon. So solar, sun, lunar, moon. So these are just some vocabulary terms and words that you'll probably need to refresh yourself on. And so all of this information for this competency is in chapter 6. Moving on to competency number 7 for science, which is all about the nature of science and the processes of scientific inquiry. So this kind of refers to, if you've already taken your elementary methods for teaching science course, this refers to kind of the science practices, or maybe you've learned about the science and engineering practices, all of those types of things, inquiry, methods and strategies, all of that is involved here. All of the things that scientists do, right? Observation, collecting, measuring, recording, summarizing, analyzing, representing scientific data, relationships between science and other areas such as math and technology and society, all of those types of things. So our practice question here: the relationship between form and function is a common theme in science. For example, the specific type of chemical bonding between copper atoms is what is responsible for the high electrical conductivity and ductility of this metal. Which of the following is another example of this relationship? The expression of human genes in bacterial cells, the jigsaw puzzle-like characteristics of the continents, the shape of plant leaves in the understory of a tropical rainforest, the differences in weathering patterns caused by wind and water. So you really need to analyze, in the example that's given in the question, the relationship, right? And what that relationship is like. And then look at the answers and analyze the relationship down, between the two things mentioned in the answers as well. And which one is another example of that same type of relationship. So go ahead and pause the video, do some thinking and analysis. And the correct answer is the shape of plant leaves in the understory of a tropical rainforest. So here's the explanation. You need to understand the relationship between form and function. So plant leaves in the understory of a tropical rainforest are usually large in order to capture as much sunlight as possible, and they often have drip tips to help excess precipitation run off. So that's the explanation of how this is similar to the chemical bonding between copper atoms and high electrical conductivity. So all of this information here is in chapter 7. Again, don't forget, 55 out of 75 correct. If this is one that you're like, this is a foreign language to me, make it one of your tally marks and don't let it stress you out, right? Okay, now let's take a look. This is a small percentage of your exam, but the arts, health, and fitness are included. So, things kind of with music, drama, dance, and visual arts are kind of the main basis for this. I won't read through everything, but then we get a little bit into health and safety and things like that. So here's a practice question. In dramatic literature, which of the following is a common characteristic of plays that are classified as tragedies? Your options are a clear and unchanging view of right and wrong, stock characters who represent particular personality types, a storyline that ridicules a situation in society for the purpose of improving it, a main character who makes an error that leads to inevitable consequences. So again, think about dramatic literature and plays and tragedies and what you know about those words. So pause the video to analyze. The correct answer is a main character who makes an error that leads to inevitable consequences. So these are just basic terms associated with drama. Tragedy is a serious dramatic form that has a sorrowful or disastrous conclusion in which a central character suffers some misfortune that is logically connected to the character's action. So anything and everything aligned to this competency you will find in chapter 8 of the study materials. So that concludes our little practice session today. Again, those were just a few examples aligned to each competency. So you will want to definitely, look at the other resources provided with this video. Take all the study tips that I mentioned on the first couple slides. And I just want to wish you luck on this exam. Remember, try to relax and calm your mind as much as possible, because really worrying and stressing, not only does it not help you pass the test, sometimes it is that block that prevents you from passing the test. There are lots of times I see students who know it, they know the stuff, they should be able to pass, but their thoughts and their anxiety about it just kind of gives them a block. So work on some strategies for reducing that stress and being able to calm your mind so that you're able to do well. And make sure you stay positive. If you have any questions for me, you can see my email there on the screen. Don't hesitate to shoot me an email to ask me a question or ask me for any other resources. So I look forward to hopefully having you in class if I haven't seen you already, and best of luck.